Well, today is a beautiful day, and I thought, what better thing to do than make a bonsai? And of course, that wouldn't be anywhere near as much fun if I don't narrate my way through it and make it even more complicated. So I figured just do a quick rundown of some of the most basic methods that you need to have in mind when working with bonsai. Some people kind of overcomplicate it. Especially, I mean, if you're a true bonsai artist, then it is extremely complicated. But if you just want, your typical bonsai tree, it really doesn't have to be so hard. Okay, so typically the first step you want to have in mind is what kind of plant do you want? I'm looking for something that I can keep indoors and will be little maintenance. I have a lot of other bonsais that are high maintenance. I just want something simple, partially because this is more than likely going to be a gift to a friend of mine who, let's just say, lacks the green thumb. See, there are tons and tons of different varieties to choose from for indoor growing and outdoor growing. So the best thing to do is figure out what suits your needs. I want something that is drought tolerant because, like I said, this person, not so much a green thumb kind of person. So less watering is better, especially since bonsais typically require a lot more frequent hydration than your typical houseplant because of the extremely shallow root system that you train them to have. So I decided to go with an olive. Then when picking out an olive, I found two different ones that I decided would be fairly decent candidates. Sorry about the backlighting. Whenever it's time to record, people show up and start talking. And by the time they leave, I lose my good light. Like, don't they understand the struggle? So I decided to go with this one. I think that this olive has a better shape to work with. An easier shape to work with. They both have good shape, but I'm going to be able to train these branches to do more because they're longer. This one does have a much smaller trunk though. I don't like that it's been cut right here, but this is a baby, so 10 years from now this is going to look really cool. That's another thing to keep in mind with bonsai is typically they take a very long time. They're never done. You're always training them. The training starts as soon as you either pot them into their bonsai pot and start training their roots and their trunk and branches, or when you just go ahead and you get the trunk started and you put them in a training pot and you want to train the roots and whatnot. That's kind of not really, neither here nor there for this video. Okay, so once you have your plant in mind, then you need to think about your pot. I'm going to be doing something that is wide. I don't have a round pot quite small enough for this guy. I have a round one back here, and I mean, that may end up looking okay, but I think that I'm going to go with this one. If this was in a much larger starter pot, this pot right here I'm going to be unpotting it from, then I might go with the larger pot, because I'm going to be training the roots in the bonsai pot, which you don't always do. Okay, so now that the pot is picked out, bonsai pots have holes in the bottom, which is good. I do not understand pottery that is sold without holes. It drives me absolutely crazy. In some nurseries that you get your bonsai pots from, they may already have a mesh put in place over here, but typically they don't. So let's do that. But I guess before we get into that, we should go over the supplies you need for everything. So you're going to need your pot, your plant, obviously, and then you're going to need screening material that you're going to be wiring over the bottom, shaping wire. You don't necessarily have to have shaping wire, but you're going to want to use it to secure the screen, but you don't always start to shape your bonsai as soon as you plant it. In fact, usually it's better to wait a little while. And then scissors. These are wire cutters you can use to trim your wire. Bonsai scissors. These are my new fancy ones that got left outside and in the humidity rusted. I shouldn't even be touching them because I have a giant cut on my finger and I need to get my tetanus booster, so I'm not going to mess with that. These I've had since I was 8 years old, and they've held up wonderfully. If I was 8 years old, then that would make these like 22, 23-year-old scissors. So these are doing great. These are 5 months old, so I won't be buying these again unless I remember to never bring them outside. And, you know, you can just use a nice pair of clean clippers. And actually, I know you're not supposed to, but I use my clippers to cut my wire. They're $8. I buy a new pair every year. Who cares? Not a big deal. Moving on. Okay, so first things first, you need to get the screen put in here. So I'm going to line it up here with the holes. See about how much I need, and then I'm just going to fold it over. This is going to be kind of a rough guess at how much to use. So I gave that a little cut, and then I'll just try and rip it the rest of the way, if possible. Oh, it's not. I'm nowhere near as strong as I was hoping I was. Go figure. There we go. I'm going to put some... Now you're going to take your wire. You're going to need 2 to 4 pieces. I usually just use 2 pieces. Some people will use 4, and I'll explain that here in just a second. And this is probably way too big. But what you're going to be doing here is you're going to take your wire, stick it down here through these holes, not that you can see through my hands, like so. And you're going to flip your pot over and just stretch them out like that. And if you have too much, clip it. So sometimes people will do it both ways. They'll put another one to come through this way also. I don't do that just because wire's a precious thing, and hasn't normally been a problem before. I've been doing this for 20 years, and it's worked out just fine. So put it in there, squeeze it through, make sure that it fits right, and then go ahead and stretch it out. So it's nice and flat, and then, you know, trim your excess. Just like so. Put a little spore in there, lift it up, and cut. Easy peasy. Oh, and don't forget to take your price tag off. Which, by the way, that is a very good price for a bonsai pot. It's actual Japanese pottery. So that's your first step to getting your pot going. Alright, so let's get this guy ready. I have my glove on. I don't normally care about getting my hands dirty. I even kind of like the way the dirt feels, but I have a big cut, so I'm not going to do that. So let's just, we don't need you anymore, even though you're adorable. These pots with these curves drive me crazy, because you end up with a nice big root mass under here and a little narrow opening up top. I'm hoping, because of the size here, that this will come out fairly easily. Oh, no. Nope, that wasn't true. Not going to come out easily. So, let's move on to a new method. Now, let's talk soil. There are different bonsai soils for different purposes, different types of plants. I generally just go with something that is very well drained. This has a lot of sand in it, orchid bark, and some very fine gravel that you can kind of see in here. You can buy bonsai dirt pre-mixed for you. The only reason I recommend using actual soil that's prepared for bonsai is because you need it to drain really well. You don't want dirt that's going to be saturated. And these are very, very good draining mixes. They typically do not have perlite in them. This does, because I make my own, so I just pulled the bulk of the dirt from the tropical potting mix that I make, and that has perlite in it. So now we need to get our olive tree ready, and my fingers are dirty, my screen won't focus. Focus please, thank you. Much better. So let's get this guy ready. Okay, so what we're doing here is gonna soak this guy for probably about 10 or 15 minutes. 10 minutes feels so long sometimes. Just waiting. Alright, let's give this a shot. See what happens here. Soak it in there for a while. So this is why I don't like using terracotta pots for my orchids, because I get so paranoid that they're going to get stuck in there. Okay, this is better. Got a lot of roots out. Some damage, that's okay. That's alright. This will work. We can make this work, right? I guess we'll see. Okay, so now that that is done, I'm actually going to just kind of swish this around and try and get as much dirt off of these roots as possible. You don't want to damage the roots very much. I mean, because it's a plant and they need them. But also, it's mainly these feeder roots. Those are the fine little hair-like roots. This is my go-to when trying to get roots clean, and it is a chopstick. I'll go in there and get the big loose balls out, whatever I have to do to get them nice and clean. But this is actually pretty nice what we have going on here. So, let's move on to the potting. And now start positioning. Don't typically put a bonsai in the very center of a pot. Usually it's over in one of the corners, because you want to have an effective space in here. It helps dwarf and miniaturize and kind of create the whole scene. And then fan those roots out when you set it down. You don't want all the roots trapped right under it. You want them to train and go out into your pot. I think that's pretty good. Then take the remainder of the dirt here. Start filling this in. There we go. Straighten this out. Lift it up, get the dirt underneath the roots. Help mound it. If you wanted this to have aerial roots, you would go ahead and get all the roots loose and tie a lava under there. But you still want lots of feeder roots down into the soil. I'm not aware of olives typically having the aerial roots, so we're not doing that here. Need to make more dirt. Okay, so now I've got the remainder of the dirt in here. Part of my squeaky chair. I need to oil some hinges here. So now, you take your bonsai gravel, this stuff right here. It's just crushed lava. People use all kinds of rock. I prefer the crushed lava, partially just because it's really just the most traditional, and that's just what I'm used to. It's nostalgic. Reminds me of when I used to do these with my aunt. She's the one who got me into gardening, and it started with bonsais and orchids. Alright, so now we have all that down. Typically, at this point, you're going to want to wait and let this take root. I'm not going to have it in full sun, even though it could take it, because I want it to de-stress for a little while. And give it several weeks. Some people would give it years. I don't have that patience, and I don't think that's necessary with an olive either. Japanese maples, the Acer palmatums, nomenclature, whatever you want to call it, might be a good idea. You don't need to do that with this. So if you wanted to start shaping this now, you would take your wire, go ahead and pull it out, cut yourself some pieces to work with, and then you wrap them around and you start bending. A lot of pros who do bonsai will use the double wire method, and that's where they actually come up here from the base. Okay, so once this is all wired up, I need to clean it up a little bit. This is when go ahead and start trying to find your shape. It's kind of the fun thing about wiring is you can really get a lot of neat shapes done when you want to start that training, and I cannot do it with one hand. So I'm going to work on shaping in return. Okay, so now we have this shaped out. Let's see if I can make it a little bit more visible. There's still some cleaning up to do, things need to be fixed. So you just go through and add some finishing touches. I usually like to use lava stone, big chunks, but I'm out. But you can kind of see the lava over here in this crepe myrtle bonsai. It's actually an old piece of live rock from a fish tank, but it'll do. So we're gonna get that in there, and then maybe a little pagoda. No, I don't know if I like the pagoda. Not sure if I'm a fan of that. I don't think I am. He can go. Doesn't fit. Might even change up what happens here with the rock, but ultimately, yeah, that rock's not gonna work for me. Oh, that's a little bit better. So when you shape these, you're trying to find a triangle, depending on what shape you're doing. I'm going for a wide base. So if I started from the top, worked out, you can see from the top I tried to make sure that nobody is directly above, so that they will all grow in different directions. And, you just give them a little bend to shape them. And then you leave them alone. Go overboard and kill them. I've done that before. So there you have it. That was fun. Nice little olive bonsai.